Hi, I'm Natasha, and today we're going to take a deep dive into everything GRE. So, what is the GRE test, and why would you need to take it? The GRE test is a standardized test for people applying to graduate, business, and law school in the United States and other countries. In fact, it's the most widely accepted graduate admission test in the world. The GRE test is taken on a computer, either at a test center or at your home. The test is also available in paper format, but only in areas where computer-based delivery is not available. If you want expert tips for the perfect grad school application and securing your spot in your first choice program, download our free GRE Success, Your Guide to Graduate Admissions PDF booklet from the description or chat in this video. So, the GRE test has 3 measures, which test the 3 key skill areas you need to succeed in graduate study programs: analytical writing, verbal reasoning, and quantitative reasoning. The analytical writing measure assesses your ability to discuss, evaluate, and support complex ideas. This part of the test has 1 section and only 1 task, called an Analyze and Issue task, which takes 30 minutes to complete. The verbal reasoning measure looks at whether you understand the meaning of words, sentences, and texts, and whether you understand the relationship between ideas in a reading text. The verbal reasoning measure has 2 sections, 27 questions, and takes 41 minutes to complete. The quantitative reasoning measure assesses whether you can use basic mathematical skills in the areas of arithmetic, algebra, geometry, and data analysis, and whether you can analyze information to solve problems. This measure also has 2 sections, and again, you'll answer a total of 27 questions. However, you have slightly longer, 47 minutes in total, to answer these questions. It's helpful to know that the first section of your test is always the analytical writing measure. However, the verbal and quantitative reasoning measures can come in any order. The whole test takes 1 hour and 58 minutes to complete. There are no breaks in the test. You go straight from the first section to the next section and so on. So let's get started by looking at the analytical writing measure. You'll be given 1 writing task called the Analyze and Issue task. You'll have to write a response to an issue, which is just another way of saying write an essay, and you'll have 30 minutes to complete the task. Analyze an issue is always the first task you'll do on the GRE test, and your goal is to write a response with a logical, well-reasoned, and persuasive argument, and support it with relevant reasons and examples. So this is what it looks like. You'll see the task, which has an issue statement and a set of instructions. The issue is in the box at the top left of the screen, and it gives an opinion on a particular topic. The instructions, just underneath the issue, tell you what you have to do in writing your response. On the right is where you'll type your response. It's a very basic word processing tool with buttons that allow you to cut text or paste text and undo or redo the previous action. There's no grammar or spell checker in the word processing tool, so remember you'll need to check those things yourself. You'll also see a timer at the top right of the screen so you can manage your time effectively. Okay, so that's what the task looks like. And here's what a high-scoring response looks like. You can see that this response is divided into 5 paragraphs. It's reasonably long, and ideal length is between 500 and 600 words. Some of the most common topic areas you'll encounter in the Analyze and Issue task are education, science, the environment, sociology, technology, careers, the arts, and politics. So make sure you are prepared because you never know what topic you'll need to write about on test day. So, I recommend you hit that subscribe button and keep an eye out for some upcoming E2 GRE videos giving you all the tips and tricks on how to write a high-scoring analytical writing response. Let's now take a quick look at the scoring for analytical writing. The analytical writing section is scored on a 0 to 6-point scale. It's a good idea to become familiar with the scoring guide. This is the official description from ETS for an analyze an issue response that's awarded the highest score, 6. The first 2 points relate to how strong the arguments are. They say a response at this level contains a clear and insightful position on the issue in accordance with the assigned task, and that the position is developed fully with compelling reasons and/or persuasive evidence. The next point talks about the organization or structure of the response. For a 6, it needs to be well-focused and well-organized, connecting ideas logically. And there are 2 points related to the use of language. They say this level of response expresses ideas fluently and precisely and uses effective vocabulary and sentence variety. They also say the ability to use conventions of standard written English is superior, although it may have some minor errors. If you don't manage to achieve all those things successfully, you'll receive a lower score. For example, a score of 5 shows that your position is well considered rather than insightful, and your reasons and examples are logically sound and well chosen rather than compelling and persuasive. Your response is generally well organized, and your vocabulary is appropriate rather than effective. As you can tell by these descriptions, 5 is still a very good score, indicating you're a strong writer. If you score a 4, your writing is adequate, your response has a clear position and relevant reasons and examples. It's adequately organized. You have sufficient ability to express ideas, and you generally demonstrate control of things like grammar, spelling, and punctuation, though you may have some errors. You'll receive a 3 if your response is vague, limited, or weak. At a score of 2, your response is unclear or seriously limited, poorly organized, and contains serious problems and errors in language. And if you score 1, your response is disorganized and has severe problems. If your response is off-topic, in a foreign language, or just copies the topic, you'll get a score of 0. And finally, if you write nothing at all, you'll receive no score, NS. Let's now take a look at verbal reasoning. The verbal reasoning measure is a reading test made up of comprehension questions based on reading passages and discrete questions which have sentences or paragraphs with gaps that you need to complete. The verbal reasoning measure contains 3 main types of questions: reading comprehension, text completion, and sentence equivalence. And the reading comprehension questions are made up of multiple choice. Select one answer choice, multiple choice, select one or more answer choices, and select in passage. There are some important differences in the question types and how you need to answer them, so let's look at each of them in turn. Reading comprehension questions make up about 50% of the verbal reasoning measure. There are typically about 13 of these questions in total, with about 5 in Section 1 and 8 in Section 2. Now pay attention. You'll be seeing a lot of reading comprehension questions on test day. So all reading comprehension questions are based on a reading passage like this one. The instructions will always tell you how many questions are based on each passage. In this case, questions 1 to 3 are based on this passage. You'll see some reading passages with just one question and some reading passages with multiple questions, anywhere from 2 to 6. And the passages can be between 1 paragraph and 5 paragraphs long. Here, you can see an example of a multiple choice select one answer choice question. This question type will have a question or stem followed by 5 answer choices. You can tell it's a select one answer choice question because there are 5 answer choices. And another clue is that the answer choices are marked with ovals, not squares. There's also a reminder at the bottom to select one answer choice. So for this question type, You just click on the one correct answer choice to select it. Next, you can see a multiple choice select one or more answer choices question. In this case, the instruction says, consider each of the choices separately and select all that apply. Again, you have a question, but this time just 3 answer choices. And this time, the answer choices are marked with squares. You have to select all the correct answers, which may be just 1 answer choice, 2 choices, or all 3. So just click on all the correct choices to select them. You need to be very careful to select the correct number of answers. If you only select one answer and there is another correct answer that you haven't selected, you won't get any points. There is no partial credit for part of a correct answer for this question type. Next, you can see a select in passage question. For this one, the instructions tell you to select the sentence in the passage that fits a specific description, in this case, explaining why one species is particularly vulnerable to climate change. The description might be about the information the sentence contains or the function it performs. For example, it might be about the sentence that introduces a particular idea. The question always reminds you to select a sentence in the passage. You simply click on any word in the sentence in the passage to select that sentence. If you have a longer passage, the instructions may indicate which paragraph or paragraphs the question applies to. Let's move on to look at the next question type, text completion. Text completion questions make up about 25% of the verbal reasoning measure. There are usually about 7 of these questions in total, with 3 in section 1 and 4 in section 2. The instructions at the top say you need to select one entry for the blank and that you have to fill in the blank in the way that best completes the text. Each text completion question has its own short passage, which can be 1 to 5 sentences long and contains 1 to 3 blanks. Like in this question, if there's only one blank, you'll see 5 answer choices. You need to choose the word from the answer choices that makes the most logical, grammatical, and stylistic sense in the blank. Just click on the word to select it. So what will it look like if there's more than one blank? Let's see. For this question, you can see the instructions say that for each blank, you have to select one option from the corresponding column of choices. So for blank 1, select from the first column, and for blank 2, select from the second column. As you can see, in text completion, if there are 2 or even 3 blanks, there are 3 answer choices for each. You must fill all the blanks in the passage correctly. If you fill one correctly and others incorrectly, you won't get a point. So you just select the best word to fill each blank to logically, cohesively, and grammatically complete the text. Now let's look at the final type of question in the verbal reasoning measure, sentence equivalence. Sentence equivalence questions make up about 25% of the verbal reasoning measure. There are usually about 7 of these questions in total, with 3 in section 1 and 4 in section 2. At first glance, sentence equivalence questions may appear similar to the text completion questions as they contain a blank for you to fill and a list of answer choices, but there are some important differences to recognize. The instructions for this question type say you need to select the 2 answer choices that, when used to complete the sentence, fit the meaning of the sentence as a whole and produce completed sentences that are alike in meaning. Then you have one sentence with one blank, and below that, 6 answer choices. You need to choose 2 words from the list that could each fit well in the blank. Remember, for this question type, you always have to select 2 answer choices. There's no partial credit if you just pick one choice, even if it's correct. So make sure you always select 2 answers. So those are all the question types in the verbal reasoning measure. Knowing how to recognize each type can help you to ensure you select the right number of answer choices so you don't lose marks in the exam. Let's now take a look at the scoring of the verbal reasoning measure. Your raw verbal reasoning score is based on the number of correct answers you provide. This raw score is then converted into a scaled score ranging from 130 to 170 in 1-point increments. If no questions are answered at all, you'll receive a no score or NS for this measure. The verbal reasoning measure is section level adaptive. By that, we mean that the test adapts to your skill level. The first section of this measure contains questions of average difficulty. If you do very well in this section, you get a second section with questions of a higher level of difficulty. If you find the first section difficult, the second section will have questions with lower difficulty. Or your answers to the first section might mean that you continue to get questions at an equal level of difficulty in the second section. And remember, the harder questions are weighted differently to the easier questions. So, if you perform well in Section 1 and move on to the harder Section 2, you'll be able to achieve a higher overall score than if you moved on to the equal or easier Section 2. That's why it's so important to perform well in Section 1. Now, if you're needing to improve your GRE verbal reasoning skills, again, I recommend you head to e2testprep.com/GRE and sign up to E2's online GRE course and get started for free. Okay, let's take a look at the final measure of the GRE, quantitative reasoning. The quantitative reasoning measure is made up of questions that are purely mathematical, as well as questions based on real-world scenarios, like applied math questions. Most of the questions are discrete, standalone questions, but you'll also see some data sets that have a set of questions based on one or more charts. The measure is a test of your mathematical knowledge and your problem-solving skills. It tests your ability to use basic math skills, understand basic math concepts and operations like multiplication and division, interpret and analyze quantitative or numerical information, solve problems using mathematical models like equations and graphs, and apply mathematical concepts to real-world scenarios. Let's now go over each of the quantitative reasoning question types. So there are 4 main types of questions: quantitative comparison, multiple choice select one answer choice, multiple choice select one or more answer choices, and numeric entry. There are also data interpretation sets with more than one question, which can include both types of multiple choice questions or numeric entry. In the GRE, each question could focus on arithmetic, geometry, algebra, or data analysis. You can expect about 1/3 of the questions to be on arithmetic, 1/3 on geometry, 1/6 on algebra, and 1/6 on data analysis. Quantitative comparison questions make up about 30% of the quantitative reasoning measure. There are often about 9 of these questions in total, with 4 in Section 1 and 5 in Section 2. That's just a rough guide, as the number of quantitative comparison questions does vary between tests. All quantitative comparison questions are based on comparing 2 quantities. You'll see details for quantity A and quantity B. Sometimes there will be extra information above the 2 quantities, such as a sentence, an equation, or a figure, and you'll see that you need to select one answer choice. You can also tell that you only need to select one answer because the answer choices have ovals next to them. In questions where you have to select one or more answers, the answer choices will have squares next to them. For this question type, you'll always have the same 4 possible answer choices. Quantity A is greater, quantity B is greater, the 2 quantities are equal, or the relationship cannot be determined from the information given. So, you compare the 2 quantities that are given and you simply select the best answer choice based on the comparison. You can see that being very familiar with the quantitative comparison question type is really going to help you answer quickly on test day, because the answer options are always the same, so you don't need to reread them every time. Moving on to the multiple choice select one answer choice question type. It can make up roughly 40% of the quantitative reasoning measure, and there are often about 12 of these questions in total, with 5 in Section 1 and 6 in Section 2. Each multiple choice question has a question or a problem, followed by 5 answer choices, and the instructions say you need to select one answer choice. So you just select the best answer to the question from the given options. Let's move on to the next question type. Multiple choice select one or more answer choices questions could make up about 10% of the quantitative reasoning measure, and there are often about 3 of these questions in total, with 1 in Section 1 and 2 in Section 2. You may see a couple more on test day, but that gives you an idea of how many you'll get. Take a look at this example. For this question type, you're given a question or a problem, then some answer choices. For this example, there are 3 choices, but for other questions it might be more, even up to 10. The question tells you to indicate all the correct answers, in this case, statements, but it could be digits or integers, lengths, sectors, and so on. It also reminds you to select one or more answer choices. In this example, we're not told how many correct answers to select, but some questions may tell you this. For example, it may ask, which 2 of the following statements must be true, and say, indicate both of the statements, so you know that you must choose 2 answer options. But for this example question, we need to find all the true statements, which might be 1 answer choice, 2 answer choices, or all 3 answer choices. So you just click on each of the answer choices you think is correct. For this question type, there is no partial credit for picking one correct choice if there are other correct choices that you didn't pick. You must select all the correct answers to get a point. Numeric entry questions are next, and these questions often make up about 10% of the quantitative reasoning measure. There are usually about 3 of these questions in total, with 1 in Section 1 and 2 in Section 2. So far, all the questions have asked you to select an answer from a list of choices. But numeric entry questions are a bit different because they require a different type of answer. As you can see, you get the question, then the box to enter your answer. And you're told to enter your answer as an integer or a decimal. Alternatively, you could see 2 answer boxes, one above the other, and you have to enter your answer as a fraction, with the numerator at the top and the denominator below. In both cases, you need to calculate the answer and enter it in the box, either by typing it or transferring it from the on-screen calculator. You'll see both types of multiple choice questions as well as numeric entry questions as individual standalone questions. But you can also see these types of questions as part of a set called a data interpretation set. You will usually get one data interpretation set in the test. It will have a series of questions based on information in one or more charts. The types of questions could be multiple choice select one answer choice, or select one or more answer choices, or numeric entry. The information could be presented in a table, bar graph, line graph, pie chart, or other visual representation. Here's an example of a data interpretation set. In this case, we have a table. There's also a question and the instructions for how to answer. When you have answered that question, you'll get another question on the same data, and then usually another question on the same data. So you study the data in the table and then answer the questions that follow. Let's now take a quick look at how the quantitative reasoning measure is scored. One key feature of the quantitative reasoning measure is its section adaptiveness. This feature means that to get a top score, you need to perform strongly in the first quantitative reasoning section. Let me show you why. Your performance in Section 1 affects the difficulty level of Section 2. The computer evaluates your performance on Section 1, and based on that, either delivers you a harder Section 2, an easier Section 2, or a Section 2 of a similar level of difficulty. So, doing well in Section 1 means a higher difficulty level in Section 2. So a higher difficulty level means you have a higher potential score. So you'll want to score well in Section 1, so you have the opportunity to really boost your score in Section 2. Your raw score is based on the number of answers you get correct. Then the raw score is converted into a scaled score ranging from 130 to 170 in 1-point increments. If no questions are answered at all, you'll receive a no score or NS for this measure. No matter how strong your mathematical skills are, you'll need to practice quantitative reasoning before test day. Just head to e2testprep.com/GRE and sign up to E2's online GRE course and get started for free. You won't regret it. And remember, if you want expert tips for the perfect grad school application and securing your spot in your first choice program, download our free GRE Success, Your Guide to Graduate Admissions PDF booklet from the description or chat in this video. And that's our deep dive of the GRE test. Remember to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.